Good morning, good evening, good afternoon to all my blessed beloveds out there in video land. You're watching Living and Thriving with Rusty, and I'm Rusty. And today has been a day from a different universe that people aren't very nice, and it's been very busy, and I am makeupless. This is authentically me, my beautiful rosacea red skin popping out everywhere. But you will have to live with it, or you can turn it off, right? Right. So today is a special day. It's one of the last shows of season 2 of Living and Thriving with Rusty, and Kathrin Hutson will be on. She is an amazing young lady, survived quite the obstacles, plural, and she's now a fiction writer. So it'll be really interesting to get to know who she is, really, what she does, really, and where she's going in life. So I'm super excited to have you on again, and I would love to know who you are, what you do, and what makes you you.
Yes. Well, thank you for having me on back. I'm Kathrin Hutson. I'm an international bestselling author of grimdark fantasy, dystopian sci-fi, LGBTQ speculative fiction, and most recently, urban fantasy. Yeah, there's a short version.
That's the short version. So you have your books. Show us your books and give us a little explanation one by one. And I promise I'm really recording this time.
Okay, excellent, good. So I do only have 4 of my books here with me. I actually have 12, but I've sold all the other physical copies that I have with me. So I guess I'll start with these are the Blue Helix books. That's the name of the series. These are LGBTQ plus dystopian sci-fi. Sleepwater Beat is the first book in the series, and this one made me an international bestseller, which is absolutely fantastic. Thank you. And Sleepwater Static was also an international bestseller a year later. So these books are really close to my heart, not just for the accolades portion, but they say a lot through story, which I feel is the most important way to get across anything, right? That's why we writers do what we do. These books in this series touch on a lot of topics that are really close to me, specifically around social justice kind of things. The first book, Sleepwater Beat, touched a lot on broken families, broken homes, homelessness, drug addiction, abuse, and just being queer in general. There were so many things that I wanted to highlight about the world as I have seen it and experienced it. And originally this book 1 just started out as a standalone. It was supposed to be just one story until I published it and got so many readers invested in continuing the story. And then I realized that the story needed to be continued as well. So what I was really trying to do with these books was highlight sort of the absurdities and intricacies of discrimination in all of its forms by showcasing it through the lens of a fictional group of people who have superhero-like abilities. They use a certain kind of word to tell stories, and it creates physical response. So they're sometimes used as weapons, or are trying to defend themselves with the weapons they do have. And they're, hunted, chased, ostracized, hated, and they were all born this way. So that it was a huge book for me, and it has more of me as a person in Leo Tiefler, the main character, than probably any other character I've written.
What I love about what you've accomplished in your young age I mean, you're a mom now, you're married,
Mhm.
you're writing all of this great work all over the world, giving voices to people who don't necessarily have voices. And but your route here was not a fun ride. You didn't have a lot of support, and you were, on the edge on that, and you're very young. So talk to us a little bit about that process, who you are
Mhm.
and how you've blossomed into this international bestseller author.
Definitely. So I, much like what I touched on with Slowly Butterby, as I was saying, I also came from a broken home and a lot of trauma in my childhood, emotional abuse and verbal, mental abuse. The physical stuff came later from not my family down the line, but I had I already had the seeds of that planted, and that led eventually, combination of things, led to me falling into a heroin addiction, pretty much right after I graduated high school, actually. And it was one of the things that it may have been the only thing where I felt like I had any real power to decide what was going to happen to me in my life. And, after 18 years essentially of trying to be, like the perfect kid, get straight A's, it wasn't very hard, honestly, for me to do. But thinking that that would be my saving grace is just keep my head down, do everything perfectly, don't call attention to myself. And then when I am an adult, when I'm out, everything will be fine. That was not, in fact, the case. And so I rebelled against my entire belief system at the time, which really was very shaky to begin with because I didn't have anyone there to teach me what was important. So I battled with heroin addiction and almost died multiple times, had some legal run-ins, and was in and out of rehab and out of the hospitals. And finally, it came to a point where, the thing that did it for me to jumpstart my journey into getting clean and reinventing my life and figuring out what it was that I really did want to do, because now I knew very much what I didn't want to do, was having a felony possession drug charge hanging over my head. And that was it for me. So that was more powerful than almost dying and losing everything and teetering on homelessness myself. Interestingly enough, I joined the drug court program in Colorado Springs. It's a 2-year sort of, not really outpatient because it's through the court systems, but it's 2 years of going to court appearances and talking with the probation officer, group therapy, what have you. Excuse me. So I did that. I took that route because I was ready to be done. And that was like a second chance for me, honestly. I had the entire charge expunged from my record. Let's see. Thank you. It's been 8 years now. 8 years ago now.
That's amazing because unfortunately, you can't even get a job at McDonald's with a felony. It's such a cruel form of punishment, and I think murderers, that's one thing, but when it comes to people with addiction issues, the only thing they have left once they get a felony is addiction, because there's no way out.
Option.
Yeah, there's no other option. So it's so awesome that Colorado did that for you, because you're really young. So
yeah, right. Yeah, I think the idea of living the rest of my life with that hanging over my head was worse than just not being around anymore, right? Because then I would have to deal with those consequences. And so fortunately, was offered the opportunity to work my way through the drug court program and have everything cleared away like it never even happened.
Do you think that you were given that opportunity because you had a history of good behavior in school versus somebody else who may have been not a great student, or did they offer that to all?
It was offered to all first-time drug offenders.
That's awesome.
So that is really, really fantastic. And that program honestly saved my life. They stepped in to help me legally, with producing court orders and restraining orders, and actually taking me at my word, which with where and how I grew up. There was so much gaslighting going on in my younger life that it was impossible for me to understand that my reality wasn't completely skewed. And so having complete strangers believe me really, really was very powerful.
That gives me a little hope, because I have zero hope for the court systems and police officers at this point. With my experience, it was completely the opposite.
Really?
And I didn't even have a parking ticket. So,
wow. Oh my gosh. That's awful. And I was very surprised.
Yeah.
That
cool.
This was an opportunity that fell in my lap. I'm very grateful, of course. So that after that, I decided that I needed to actually figure out what it was that I wanted to do with my life, with myself, with the person I wanted to be. I got myself out of all of the abusive living situations and relationships that I had been in for so long, and didn't feel like I could get away from. And I met my husband, let's see, two years after I got clean. And we packed up together and shipped off from Colorado to South Carolina after dating for 4 months. And that's where he's from. And then I was able to
do that.
What?
The courts let you do that?
Oh, this was, let's see.
After you were expunged, so you were free again?
Yeah, so I finished the program right before I met my husband. And then, like, if you stay clean or, don't get in trouble for a year after you graduate, then they expunge it from your record 7 years later. I've been clean for almost 11 years. No, 3 years later.
That's okay. We don't have to do math. It's not a math show. Yay!
I know. I don't do math. I am not a mathematician. I'm an author, and there's a very big difference between the two.
About cool things like vampires and dragons and stuff. Not math.
So come on. Yeah, no, there's no math. There's no math at all. There's like 3 of everything. There's 3 this and 3 that because that's an easy number. So yeah, I was free to go and do whatever at that point. And I had graduated and was ready to fly. So it took me 4 years after I got clean to be able to start writing again. I had been writing since I was 10, and it was always my passion, always what I knew I wanted to do. I went to University of Colorado at Boulder for my bachelor's in creative writing fiction. I was accepted into that program, and that was what I wanted to do. Thank you. Unfortunately, I had to drop out to get clean, but I don't have a college degree, and I'm still doing what I love all day, every day anyway. And that was also a huge lesson for me.
Was that something that the program helped guide you and give you the support that you needed to find work and things like that to be sustaining, or they were just fully getting you sober?
Yeah, it wasn't so much getting people sober as it was keeping program participants accountable in all aspects of life. So it didn't matter where you worked, but you had to have a job, and it had to be so many hours a week. And you go to court once a month, and they check in with you, and they have all the paperwork, and they very highly recommended 12-step programs, which I did dive into at that point. And, you know, of course, if anything happens legally, drug court will know about it. I had to call into a urine analysis test line every single day. They would call random colors. And if your color was called, you had to go into the drug testing site and take a random drug test.
Wow.
And go back to wherever you were. Yeah, it was pretty intensive. It was quite a lot. And, you know, I did miss one phone call when I was very sick, and it happened to be called on that day, my color, and I spent a week in jail because of that.
Even though you were ill?
Yes, because it is about that accountability and not making excuses, as drug addicts and alcoholics are so apt to do. So it was a very intense program of treating everyone as an adult and expecting them to treat themselves as adults as well, and holding themselves accountable, holding everyone else accountable. So it was hugely important. And I had already, you know, been financially, emotionally supporting myself for quite some time before this.
Must have scared you straight a little bit, huh? Especially coming from an abusive background, like having somebody on you like that all the time. I would imagine it would be very traumatic.
It was not. It was so incredibly freeing because everyone took me at my word. They listened to me. They believed me. You know, the group therapy and then like one-on-one counseling with their therapist through the program was probably, well, two things that were the most helpful for me. But that sitting around with a bunch of people who don't know me, don't know my background, and I can very, you know, understatedly say this is what's going on, and have everyone draw the same conclusions that I had been drawing my entire life, but had never been allowed to find a place to validate that. You know, I was always
right
enclosed, you know, within my home life, and threatened for going to talk to anyone about it. So that, you know, that was huge for me. I finally was aware that, like, I wasn't crazy, to put it simply, you know, that none of this was my fault or my problem. And then, you know, the other most helpful thing was that I had, I was briefly suicidal when I first started the program, and it wasn't because I didn't want to do the program. It was because the parent who had bailed me out of jail when I was arrested made the terms of my bond so insanely extreme and absurd that I couldn't leave the house. I could go anywhere by myself. I couldn't talk on the phone. I couldn't get on the computer. I couldn't go a mile away from this person at any point in time. And yet, you know, they're always telling me, you need to go to meetings, you need to do this, you need to do that. Like, why aren't you here and here? And it was rough. It was rough. And I was 20. Yeah. I just had a really good friend pass away. You know, there were like so many things going on. And all I had to do was walk into my probation officer's office and sit down and say, hey, look, this is what I'm feeling. And I'm thinking about this, and it's kind of scary. The person who I am legally obligated to live with right now will not let me leave the house, even if I say I need to get out. And so they, the whole team together, and the magistrate put together a court order for me that required me to leave that house. And then I lived in a sobriety house after that, which saved my life again. And just the fact that people would believe me and say, oh, yes, we will do what we can to help you. You're doing a phenomenal job. Thank you for telling us, instead of, oh, quit blowing it out of proportion. Like, you're not actually, like, you're just doing this for attention. You know, and that was always what I got whenever I expressed my feelings. And so this was a huge change for me, and seeing how the world worked, or how it could work.
And that's really, Yeah, that had to have opened up a lot for you. And I'm sure that is titillating when you're creating your characters in your books, because you get to have different perspectives from the seat that you were sitting in so many ways. And now that you're a mom, it's like you've got
It's
tons,
an eye opener.
years of writing going on, right?
Oh, I know.
So let's talk a little bit about your books, because we have a few minutes left, and you have an amazing story, and I can't wait for everybody to buy your books for Christmas. This is Christmas time, so
Yes.
your books.
Oh,
And
get them.
PG-13 are,
I would say PG-17.
okay, PG-13.
Or is that? Or yeah, is that seven?
I don't even know if that's a thing.
MA-17, mature audience. Not for books, but for movies. That's what I'm thinking.
And I'm clueless. I let my daughter read whatever she wants, but this does hit the I can never say this right, LGBTQ community. Did I do it right? Probably not.
All the letters are there. You're good.
All the letters are there. But it hits home for them as well to give a voice. And so I want to make sure that we acknowledge that, because that's really amazing that you're hitting all of these spectrums, but they sound like really fun books.
Oh, thank you.
You said, you showed me one about a dragon and a mom. Like, I'm down with that.
Oh yeah, well it's called, yes, here I am. Here are the other ones. These are my first two books. This is the Kinota's Children duology, The Jungle Book meets Kill Bill with Dragons. She does actually become a mother. I don't want to give any spoilers. These are my very first two books. And my first Amazon bestseller, actually, which is fantastic. And these, yeah, they're very dark, very violent, very bloody. They are not considered LGBTQ plus fiction or queer fiction at all. So that Sleepwater Beat and Sleepwater Static were my first real push into that. And then most recently, I have finished my urban fantasy series, Accessory to Magic. And that's 5 books total. I did not in any way intend.
That's a lot of writing.
Yeah, yes, I do a lot of writing. That's my job.
I'm gonna pay the bills.
Yeah, gotta do somehow. No, I didn't in any way intend to make Jessica Northwood, the main character of that series, a queer character, but it happened, and I was actually very, very happy about it. Jessica and I also have a lot in common. She did go to prison. I did not go to prison, but she stripped away half of her most powerful and devastating magic, locked it up in a tin box in her underwear drawer, and won't touch it. And I did very much the same thing with my own writing until I realized that I could not be bigger or better than who I was if I didn't embrace all of myself. So that's kind of like a similar story with Jessica and Accessory to Magic, and it was a wild ride. Such a fun series. Actually, my most popular right now, so I love it.
And we can find all of that on your website, right?
Yes, it's KathrinHutsonFiction.com. Everything you need to know about my books. I'm on Facebook and Instagram as Kathrin Hutson Fiction, and on Twitter as Exquisitely Dark.
I love it. Any parting words for people who have that darkness? And I think we all have the dark and the light, and it's part of our duality and our balance, and something to embrace and hold and love and cherish and understand and acknowledge, instead of fight. And I think when you try to fight it, that's when you get into addictions and abusive relationships, because that's a way to fight that part of you. What kinds of things would you say to some of our younger people out there who might be on their that last thought?
Yeah, I would say, and this is also something I try to inject beneath the surface of all of my books and my work, and pretty much why I write what I write now, is, that what I truly believe is kind of what I feel like I'm living proof of, that the mistakes that we make and the harm we may cause to ourselves and others, no matter how seemingly unforgivable, they don't define who we are, and they don't dictate our futures. You know, there's always an opportunity to change and turn something around and keep moving forward. The decision to do so is probably the hardest part. And then after that, there's a lot of freedom there. Still a lot of work and a lot of freedom, but you know, that's what I would say. That's what I do say on a regular basis.
I love it. You're so cute. Sweet girl, show us your books one more time. Your websites will be, your link will be down below because it's Christmas holiday and she would love for your people to have a couple of her books. It's so worth the ride. And if you want to show the books one more time real quick.
Yes, here we go.
I was asleep on me. It's been a long day.
I had my others with me.
Oh my God.
I know, it's been a long day. Daughter of the Dragon, Mother of the Dragon, Grimdark Fantasy, The Jungle Book meets Kill Bill with Dragons. And first 2 books in the Blue Helix series, Sleepwater Beat and Sleepwater Static, LGBTQ plus dystopian sci-fi. Awesomeness. It's like the girl with the dragon tattoo meets X-Men. So
oh, cool.
Can't go wrong with that.
That sounds fun. Kathrin, you are a beautiful soul. Thank you for doing all that you have done. I can't wait to hear about what you're doing in the future, because I'm sure we will circle around again. Take care.
Yes, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much.
Bye, sweetheart. You're watching Living and Thriving with Rustie. I'm Rustie, and look at what I get to do. This is so exciting. I get to travel all over the world, meeting wonderful people who have overcome obstacles and really kicked ass and didn't need to take names. International bestseller, 10, 11, 12, 15, how many years ago? We don't know because we can't do math today. It's been a long day. Heroin addict, going to jail forever with a felony. And look at what she's done. She's taken all of that energy, all of that stuff, and created a ton of books. Haha, he said I was going to swear again. I'm trying to curb that. It's like smoking or something. I don't know. Anyway, know that you're loved. Know that you're beautiful. And do something kind. I say it every single show, and I really genuinely mean do something kind, especially right now because it's the holiday season. And this really pulls up a lot of demons and dark stuff for people. And, you know, buying a cup of coffee actually could save a life. You never know what smiling at somebody will do for them, making them feel whole again, making them feel cared enough for that you spent a second to smile. It's really that serious, believe it or not. Until next time.